The blood hadn't dried yet when Kira Volkov found the first body. She crouched beside the mangled remains of what had once been a Terran mining engineer, her tactical scanner painting the corpse in harsh blue light. The man's torso had been opened. With surgical precision, organs arranged in deliberate patterns round his body. This wasn't random violence, this was art. Sick, twisted art that made Kira's stomach clench with familiar dread. The Vorthok had found them. "Command, this is Recon 7, she whispered into her comm, keeping her voice steady despite the chaos in her chest. "I've got confirmation on the Hadrian colony massacre. It's the same signature as Kepler Station." Static crackled in response. Then Commander Ravencrest's gravelly voice cut through. "Copy, 7. How many survivors?" Kira swept her scanner across the settlement's main street, reading heat signatures through the wreckage of prefab buildings. Nothing, not even the faint glow of a dying body. 0 confirmed survivors. "Command, population of 400, all accounted for." She paused, studying claw marks gouged deep into titanium plating. They took their time with this one. The Vorthok weren't just killers, they were connoisseurs of death, a warrior species that had evolved beyond the need for territory or resources. They now hunted solely for the pleasure of the kill. Humans had been their latest obsession for 3 years, ever since first contact had gone catastrophically wrong. They found human screams particularly melodious. Kira rose from her crouch, muscle memory guiding her through weapons checks even as her mind processed the horror around her. Pulse rifle charged, sidearm loaded, tactical knife sharp enough to split atoms. Her exosuit's biomonitors showed elevated stress hormones, but her hands remained steady. 3 tours in the outer rim had taught her to function through anything. A movement in her peripheral vision made her freeze. Thermal signature faint, but definitely organic. Something was alive in the ruins of the colony's medical center. She approached with predatory caution, each step calculated to avoid the debris that littered the street. Her scanner painted the building's interior in wireframe blue, revealing a single heat source in what had been an operating theater. Too small to be adult, child-sized. The medical center's main door hung at an angle, its blast-resistant frame twisted like putty. Kira slipped through the gap, her rifle's targeting laser cutting through the gloom. The smell hit her immediately: ozone and copper, the scent of energy weapons and fresh blood. In the corner of the operating theater, behind an overturned surgical table, she found him, a boy, maybe 10 years old, clutching a datapad against his chest like a shield. His eyes were wide with shock, but when he saw her approach, something flickered across his features. Not relief, recognition. "You're military," he whispered. "You're here to kill them." Kira knelt beside him, keeping her rifle ready. "What's your name?" "Kid, Marcus Chenokafer." His voice carried an odd formality, as if he'd been practicing the words. "They killed everyone. Mom, Dad, my sister." His grip tightened on the datapad. "But they're coming back." "What do you mean, coming back?" Marcus held up the datapad, its screen displaying a transmission log. "They sent a message to their ship, called it a preliminary harvest. They're bringing more hunters for something they called." He struggled with the alien pronunciation. "Ketavar, the Grand Hunt." Kira's blood turned to ice water in her veins. She'd heard that term before, in intelligence briefings that carried the highest classification levels. Ketavar wasn't just a hunt, it was a celebration, a festival where Vorthok warriors competed for the most creative kills. And humans, with their complex psychology and capacity for both courage and terror, had become the prize quarry. "How long until they return?" she asked. Marcus consulted the datapad. 14 hours. They're bringing 30 hunters. 30. Kira had killed Vorthok before, but never more than 3 at once. Each warrior stood 8 feet tall, possessed reflexes that made humans look arthritic, and wore bioarmor that could shrug off direct hits from plasma cannons. 30 of them would turn this dead colony into an abattoir. She activated her long-range comm, knowing it would likely be her last transmission. "Command, this is Recon 7. I need immediate extraction for 1 civilian and a full battle group deployment to Hadrian colony." The response came laden with static and regret. "Negative, 7. Nearest support is 48 hours out. Can you maintain position?" Kira looked at Marcus, then at the twisted remains of his family scattered throughout the medical center. The boy had survived 14 hours of hell, hidden while monsters turned his world into their playground. She wouldn't let them finish what they'd started. Roger that. Command. Recon 7 will hold position. She switched to a local channel and began recording. If anyone receives this transmission, know that Corporal Kira Volkov of the 3rd Terran Marines died fighting. The Vorthik think humans make good prey. They're about to learn we make better predators. She had 14 hours to turn a graveyard into a killing field. The hunt was about to become a war. The first Vorthik dropped from orbit exactly when Marcus had predicted. Kira watched through her rifle's scope as the alien warrior's biopod cracked open like an egg, releasing 9 feet of chitinous death into the pre-dawn darkness. Even at 200 meters, she could hear the creature's hunting song, a harmonic vibration that resonated through her bones and made her teeth ache. She'd spent the past 14 hours turning Hadrian Colony into a maze of death traps. Every building had become a potential ambush point, every street a carefully calculated killing zone. The mining explosives from the colony's stores now formed a network of improvised bombs that would make the devil himself proud. Marcus crouched beside her in their concealed position atop the colony's water processing plant, his young face streaked with camouflage paint she'd mixed from ash and blood. The boy had insisted on staying close, and she'd realized his presence might actually help. Vorthik hunters often became overconfident when they detected juveniles. Remember the plan, she whispered, her breath creating tiny clouds in the cold air. When I start shooting, you trigger the charges in sequence, building by building. Just like we practiced. The boy nodded, his fingers steady on the detonator. Ray they'd jury-rigged from mining equipment. His parents had been engineers, and the kid had inherited their technical aptitude along with their stubborn courage. The Vorthik warrior moved through the colony with fluid grace, its bioarmor rippling with bioluminescent patterns that served as both camouflage and communication. These creatures were apex predators from a world where everything had evolved to kill, and they'd brought that evolutionary perfection to the stars. Kira waited until the alien reached the colony's central square, then squeezed her trigger. The hypervelocity round punched through the creature's shoulder joint, spinning it around and eliciting a shriek that shattered windows throughout the settlement. Purple ichor sprayed across the ground as the Vorthik stumbled, its primary weapon arm hanging useless, but it didn't fall. Instead, the warrior's head snapped toward her position. With mechanical precision, compound eyes reflecting the muzzle flash, like a kaleidoscope of death, it opened its mandibles and released a battle roar that made Kira's vision blur. Now, Marcus. The boy's finger found the first detonator. The explosion erupted from beneath the alien's feet, a carefully shaped charge that sent tungsten fragments screaming upward through the creature's legs. The Vorthik launched into the air, its hunting song transforming into something that might have been pain or rage. It landed hard but rolled with inhuman agility, bioarmor already beginning to seal around its wounds. Kira put 3 more rounds into its center mass, watching them spark off reactive plating that hardened on impact. The warrior's functioning arm swept up, and Kira threw herself sideways as a plasma bolt vaporized the spot where she'd been crouching. The heat washed over her like an open furnace, singeing the hair on her arms despite her suit's thermal protection. Building 7, she shouted. Marcus triggered the second charge as the Vorthik bounded toward their position. With terrifying speed, the explosion brought down half of the communications center, creating a barrier of twisted metal and ferrocrete that forced the alien to alter its approach. But Vorthik weren't just fast, they were smart. The warrior launched itself onto the side of the medical center, claws finding purchase in titanium plating as it began to climb. It would reach their position in seconds, and at close range, no human could match a Vorthik's killing speed. Kira made a decision that would have horrified her instructors at the War College. She jumped 20 feet down to the street below, landing hard enough to crack her suit's chest plate and send fire through her ribs. But she was alive, and more importantly, she was where the Vorthik didn't expect her to be. The alien warrior dropped from the building like a falling gargoyle, its remaining arm extended to impale her on claws that could punch through starship hull plating. Kira rolled backward, bringing her rifle up just as the creature landed. At point-blank range, she emptied her entire magazine into its head. The hypervelocity rounds finally found their mark, punching through the weaker armor round. The creature's compound eyes and spraying alien brain matter across the colony's main street. The Vorthik convulsed once, then collapsed in a heap of twitching chitin and cooling biofluids. Kira staggered to her feet, reloading with hands that shook only slightly. One down. 29 to go. Kira, Marcus's voice crackled through her comm. More pods incoming. Lots more. She looked up to see shooting stars filling the dawn sky, dozens of biopods, screaming down through Hadrian's atmosphere like falling comets. The preliminary scout had been exactly that, a scout. The real hunters were arriving now, and they'd seen what happened to their advanced warrior. The next phase of the HFY would be different. The Vorthik had learned she was dangerous, which meant they'd stop treating this like a sport and start treating it like a war. That was fine. With Kira, war was something she understood. She keyed her calm to the emergency frequency, broadcasting on all channels. This is Corporal Kira Volkov, 3rd Terran Marines, transmitting from Hadrian Colony. If any human forces receive this signal, be advised that I am engaging a Vorthik hunting party in active combat. They came here to hunt a little girl for sport. She chambered a fresh round and smiled grimly at the burning sky. Instead, they found a Marine. The real battle was about to begin. The Vorthik hunting pack descended like a plague of locusts. Kira counted 23 biopods impacting around the colony's perimeter, each one disgorging a nightmare that had evolved specifically to kill. These weren't the mindless berserkers she'd fought in the Outer Rim. These were elite hunters, their bioarmor bearing the ritual scarification that marked veterans of 100 successful HFY ceremonies. She pressed herself against the wall of the colony's power station, her tactical display painting hostile contacts an angry red as they spread out to surround her. Position. Marcus crouched beside her, his face pale but determined, fingers poised over the detonator controls. They're not charging, he whispered, studying the alien movement patterns through a gap in the blast-damaged wall. Why aren't they charging? Kira's jaw tightened as she watched the Vorthik warriors take position with military precision. They'd learned from their scout's death, adapting their tactics to face a dangerous opponent rather than defenseless prey. No more individual glory hunts. This was coordinated predation at its finest. Because they're treating us like equals now, she said. That's good and bad. How is that good? Equals fight back. Prey just dies. She checked her ammunition count, 67 rounds remaining for her rifle, plus whatever explosive surprises they had left scattered throughout the colony. Against 23 apex predators, it might as well be a handful of pebbles. Bad news is they won't make mistakes anymore. A chittering communication passed between the Vorthik positions, their harmonic language creating interference patterns in her suit's audio sensors. They were coordinating, sharing tactical information with the efficiency of a hive mind. The first probe came from the east, a single warrior moving with liquid grace between the ruined buildings, testing their defenses. Kira let it approach to within 50 meters before putting a hypervelocity round through its knee joint. The creature stumbled, purple ichor streaming, but its packmates immediately adjusted their positions to account for her firing angle. Building 12, she ordered. Marcus triggered the charge, bringing down the colony's environmental control center in a cascade of twisted metal and sparking electronics. But this time, the Vorthik were ready. They flowed around the debris like water, never clustering enough to be caught in a single explosion. 2 more warriors appeared on her flanks, moving with the patient inevitability of wolves. Kira put rounds into both of them, scoring hits on armor joints and exposed flesh, but she couldn't maintain fire on multiple targets simultaneously. A plasma bolt seared past her head, close enough to char the paint on her helmet. She rolled sideways, bringing her rifle around, but the shooter had already moved to a new position. They're hurting us, she realized, studying the tactical display. The Vorthik weren't trying to kill her quickly. They were driving her toward the colony's center, compressing her available cover and forcing her into increasingly desperate positions. Classic pack hunting behavior. Another probe, this time from the north. 3 warriors moving in a coordinated rush, their bioarmor rippling with aggressive display patterns. Kira put her rifle on full auto and swept them with sustained fire, watching hypervelocity rounds spark off reactive plating. One stumbled with a damaged leg, another took a round through its weapon arm, but the third reached the edge of her position before she could stop it. It vaulted over a pile of debris with impossible grace, claws extended for a killing strike. Marcus saved her life. The boy triggered 3 charges simultaneously, bringing down the water treatment plant's main structure directly onto the attacking warrior. Tons of ferrocrete and twisted piping buried the alien in an avalanche of industrial wreckage, but the distraction cost them their position. Plasma fire erupted from 6 different angles, turning their cover into molten slag. Kira grabbed Marcus and dove through a blast hole in the building's rear wall, rolling them both behind the relative safety of an overturned cargo hauler. Status report, she gasped, checking the boy for injuries. 11 charges left, Marcus replied, his voice steady despite the chaos. But they're spread too far apart now. The explosions won't be as effective. Kira nodded grimly. The Vorthik had adapted to her trap network, spreading out to minimize casualties from the improvised bombs. Her advantage was evaporating with each passing minute. A new sound filled the air, the harmonic hunting song of the entire pack, their voices blending into a resonance that made her bones vibrate. It was beautiful and terrible, the sound of death approaching with artistic precision. They were closing in for the final phase of the hunt. Kira checked her ammunition again. 43 rounds. She'd killed 1 Vorthik and wounded several others, but at least 20 remained combat effective. The math was brutally simple. She was going to run out of bullets long before she ran out of targets. Marcus, she said, pulling the boy close, listen to me very carefully. In about 2 minutes, I'm going to draw them all toward the colony's fusion plant. When I do, I want you to run. Head for the forest, find somewhere to hide, and wait for the rescue ships. No, his voice carried surprising steel. We fight together or we die together. That's what my dad always said about family. Family. The word hit Kira harder than any plasma bolt. This boy had lost everyone he loved, watched his world burn around him, and still had the courage to stand beside a stranger against impossible odds. That was humanity in its purest form, stubborn, irrational, and absolutely unwilling to quit. All right then, she said, checking her sidearm and tactical knife. Let's make them earn it. The hunting song grew louder as shadows began moving between the ruined buildings. 23 apex predators converging onto humans who refused to know when they were beaten. Kira smiled grimly and chambered her last loaded magazine. The Vorthik thought they were hunting prey. They were about to learn the difference between prey and predator. The fusion plant's cooling towers cast twisted shadows across the colony's industrial sector. As Kira led the Vorthik pack into her final gambit, she moved with calculated desperation, making enough noise to ensure the aliens could track her while avoiding their increasingly accurate plasma fire. Marcus stayed close, his detonator array clutched against his chest like a shield. Behind them, the hunting pack flowed through the ruins with predatory patience, no longer rushing toward their prey. They'd learned she was dangerous. Now they were learning she was desperate. Perfect. How much antimatter does a fusion plant contain? Marcus whispered as they took cover behind a massive coolant pump. Enough to glass everything within 5 kilometers, Kira replied, studying the plant's main reactor through her rifle scope. The containment vessel gleamed like a metal egg in the center of the facility, surrounded by enough safety systems to make a paranoid AI nervous. And we're standing 100 meters away from it. Yep, she began counting Vorthik positions on her tactical display. 18 heat signatures visible, which meant the others were either wounded or using some kind of thermal camouflage. Sometimes the only way to win is to make sure nobody wins. A plasma bolt vaporized chunks of the coolant pump inches from her head, showering them both with molten metal. The pack was closing in from 3 directions, their movements coordinated with mathematical precision. In 30 seconds, they'd have overlapping fields of fire that would turn this position into a killing box. Kira made her choice. She vaulted over their cover and sprinted toward the fusion plant's main entrance, her rifle spitting hypervelocity rounds at anything that moved. A Vorthik warrior rose from behind a pile of twisted pipes, and she put 3 rounds through its center mass without breaking stride. The alien staggered but didn't fall, its bioarmor already beginning to repair the damage. These creatures were built to survive punishment that would liquefy a human, and they just kept coming. Behind her, Marcus triggered 2 more charges, bringing down sections of the cooling system in cascades of superheated steam. The Vorthik flowed around the obstacles like living water, their compound eyes tracking every movement with mechanical precision. Kira reached the plant's blast doors and slammed her hand against the emergency release. Nothing happened. The facility's automated systems had locked down. When they detected the battle raging outside, a plasma bolt seared past her shoulder, close enough to melt her suit's armor plating. She spun and put her rifle on full automatic, sweeping the advancing aliens with sustained fire. Her hypervelocity rounds sparked off bioarmor and drew streams of purple ichor, but she couldn't stop them all. Two warriors bounded over the cooling pipes with impossible grace, their claws extended for killing strikes. Kira dropped her empty rifle and rolled sideways, drawing her sidearm as she moved. At point-blank range, she put 6 rounds into the first alien's head, watching compound eyes explode in showers of crystalline fragments. The second warrior's claws raked across her chest plate, gouging furrows in military-grade ceramics. She stumbled backward, her sidearm tracking toward the creature's center mass, but it moved with liquid speed that made her reactions look arthritic. Marcus saved her again. The boy had reached the plant's auxiliary control panel, his engineer, parents' training guiding his fingers across unfamiliar interfaces. The blast doors cycled open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing the fusion plant's cathedral-like interior. Kira dove through the opening as the second warrior's claws whistled through the space. Where her head had been, she hit the deck hard, rolled to her feet, and found herself face to face with enough contained antimatter to crack a small moon. The Vorthic hunting pack flowed through the blast doors like a tide of chitin and malice, their harmonic voices echoing off the reactor chamber's walls. 18 warriors in perfect formation, moving with the confidence of apex predators who'd cornered their prey. Fusion plant emergency protocol, Kira shouted at the facility's AI. Authorization Volkov 77 Delta. Emergency authorization not recognized. The AI replied in maddeningly calm tones. Please consult your supervisor. A plasma bolt vaporized the concrete beside her head. Kira grabbed Marcus and dove behind the reactor's massive support structure, her mind racing through options that all led to the same conclusion. She was out of ammunition, out of explosives, and out of time, but she wasn't out of spite. Marcus, she said, drawing her tactical knife. Remember what I taught you about Vorthic anatomy? The boy nodded, pulling out his own improvised weapon, a shard of titanium plating sharpened to a razor edge. His young face was streaked with blood and grime, but his eyes held the kind of determination that had carried humanity to the stars. They have to get close to kill us, he said, understanding her plan. And when they do, we make them bleed for every step. The Vorthic hunting song filled the reactor chamber as the pack began their final approach. 18 apex predators closing in onto humans who refused to surrender. Kira gripped her knife and smiled grimly. These aliens had come to Hadrian Colony expecting to hunt defenseless prey in an elaborate ritual of death. Instead, they'd found something far more dangerous: humans with nothing left to lose. The last stand was about to begin. The reactor chamber became a cathedral of violence. Kira exploded from cover as the first Vorthic warrior rounded the antimatter containment vessel, her tactical knife finding the gap between the creature's neck armor and chest plate. Purple ichor fontained across the polished floor as she ripped the blade sideways, opening the alien's throat to the bone. The warrior's death scream harmonized with the hunting songs of its packmates, creating a discord that made the reactor chamber's walls vibrate. But there was no time to appreciate the symphony. 2 more aliens flanked her position, their claws reaching for her heart. Marcus appeared beside the second warrior like a vengeful ghost, his improvised blade punching through the creature's knee joint. The Vorthic stumbled, and Kira capitalized on the opening by driving her knife deep into its compound eye cluster. The third alien's claws raked across her back, shredding her suit's armor and drawing lines of fire across her ribs. She spun with the impact, using the momentum to slash at the creature's weapon arm. Her blade bit deep into alien flesh, severing tendons and drawing another shriek of pain. But 18 had become 15, and 15 was still far too many. Plasma fire erupted from multiple positions, turning the air around them into superheated death. Kira grabbed Marcus and dove behind a coolant manifold as energy bolts vaporized chunks of the reactor chamber's walls. They're trying to avoid hitting the containment vessel, she realized, studying the aliens' firing patterns. They don't want to die in an antimatter explosion any more than we do, which gave her an idea that would have horrified every safety inspector in the Terran Federation. Marcus, can you access the reactor's magnetic containment system? The boy studied the nearest control panel, his engineer's instincts parsing interfaces designed for trained technicians. Maybe, but if I destabilize the magnetic bottle, the antimatter will be contained for maybe 30 seconds before the fail-safes kick in. Kira hefted her knife, watching Vorthic shadows move between the massive cooling pipes, long enough to scare them into making mistakes. A warrior launched itself over their cover with impossible grace, Claws extended for a killing strike. Kira met its descent with her blade, punching the point through the creature's chest plate and into the vital organs beneath. They hit the ground together, alien blood mixing with human as they rolled across the polished floor. The Vorthic's mandibles snapped at her face, close enough that she could smell the alien's last meal on its breath. She drove her knee into its damaged chest, feeling ribs crack under the impact, then twisted her knife until the light faded from its compound eyes. 15 had become 14. Now would be good, she shouted as plasma bolts seared the air around. Her position. Marcus's fingers flew across the control panel, bypassing safety protocols with the desperate innovation that defined human engineering. Warning lights began flashing throughout the reactor chamber. As the magnetic containment field fluctuated, critical containment failure detected. The facility AI announced, evacuating personnel. Antimatter breach in 30 seconds. The effect on the Vorthic hunting pack was immediate and profound. Their coordinated advance dissolved into chaos. As individual warriors struggled between the desire to complete their hunt and the instinct for self-preservation, Kira used their confusion to deadly advantage. She sprinted between the cooling pipes, like a feral predator, her knife finding gaps in bioarmor with surgical precision. A warrior turned to track her movement, and she opened its throat. Another raised its weapon to fire, and she severed the tendons in its arm. Marcus had become a shadow among the machinery, his improvised blades striking at knees and ankles, crippling warriors and leaving them for Kira to finish. The boy fought with the desperate innovation of someone who'd lost everything and had nothing left to fear, but the pack adapted even to chaos. A massive warrior larger than the others and bearing the ritual scarification of a hunt leader began, imposing order through sheer physical dominance. Its harmonic commands cut through the confusion, reorganizing the remaining aliens into a fighting formation. 12 warriors, still too many, but no longer the overwhelming force they'd been moments before. The hunt leader's compound eyes fixed on Kira with something that might have been respect. It opened its mandibles and released a challenge call that made her bones vibrate, an invitation to single combat that carried the weight of ancient tradition. Antimatter breach in 15 seconds, the AI warned. Kira looked at Marcus, saw the boy's nod of understanding, and made a decision that would define the remainder of her very short life. She stepped into the open space before the antimatter containment vessel and raised her knife in acceptance of the challenge. The hunt leader's response was a roar that shattered every piece of glass in the reactor chamber. It launched itself forward with killing speed, claws extended to end the defiant human who'd turned their sacred hunt into a bloodbath. Kira met its charge head-on, her knife seeking the creature's heart. Behind them, the antimatter containment field collapsed in a cascade of failing magnetic bottles and screaming alarms. Breach imminent, initiating emergency containment. The reactor chamber filled with the sound of humanity. An alien apex predator locked in mortal combat, while enough antimatter to level a city strained against rapidly failing containment systems. 10 seconds until breach. 9.8. The final phase of the battle was about to begin. 7 seconds until antimatter breach. Kira's knife met the hunt leader's claws in a shower of sparks. As alien chitin scraped against sharpened steel, the creature stood 9 feet tall and outweighed her by 300 pounds, its bioarmor rippling with bioluminescent threat displays. Against any reasonable measure of combat effectiveness, she should have died in the first second of contact. Instead, she fought like a human, dirty, desperate, and absolutely unwilling to quit. 6 seconds. She rolled beneath the alien's killing strike, her blade opening a gash along its inner thigh where the bioarmor was thinner. Purple ichor sprayed across the polished floor as the hunt leader staggered, its harmonic roar of pain echoing off the reactor chamber's walls. 5 seconds. The remaining Vorthic warriors pressed forward, their pack discipline overriding individual survival instincts. Marcus met them with improvised explosives he'd crafted from reactor coolant and mining, chemicals, crude bombs that turned alien bioarmor into shrapnel and filled the air with toxic vapor. For seconds, Kira drove her shoulder into the hunt leader's damaged leg, using leverage and momentum to bring the massive creature crashing down. They hit the deck together, rolling across sharp debris while claws and knife sought vital targets. 3 seconds. Emergency. Containment successful, the facility AI announced with infuriating calm. Magnetic bottles stabilized. Antimatter breach averted. The words hit the surviving Vorthok like a physical blow. Their retreat toward the blast doors stopped. As they realized the threat of annihilation had passed, 9 warriors remained, wounded, but still deadly, their compound eyes reflecting the reactor chamber's emergency lighting. To seconds. Kira found her opening as the hunt leader raised its claws for a killing strike. Her knife punched through the creature's throat, just below the jaw, angled upward to sever the spinal cord that connected its brain to its body. The alien's eyes went dark instantly. 1 second. The hunt leader's massive corpse collapsed onto Kira, pinning her to the floor under hundreds of pounds of cooling alien flesh. She struggled to free herself as the remaining warriors converged on her position, their mandibles open in triumphant killing songs. 0. Marcus triggered his final improvised explosive. The boy had been working on it throughout the battle, a fusion of reactor coolant, mining charges, and pure human ingenuity. When it detonated beneath the antimatter containment vessel, it created a directed blast that channeled superheated plasma directly into the approaching Vorthok formation. 3 warriors simply vaporized, their bioarmor no match for the temperatures. Found at the heart of a star. 4 more staggered away with massive burns that seared through their protective plating and cooked the flesh beneath, but to survive the blast intact, their bioarmor's adaptive properties protecting them from the worst of the heat. They bounded over their fallen pack mates with predatory grace, claws extended toward the small human who dared to fight back. Marcus stood his ground. The boy raised his improvised blade with hands that didn't shake, his young face set in lines of absolute determination. He'd watched his family die, survived 14 hours of hell, and helped kill more alien apex predators than most Marine battalions ever faced. He would not run. The first Vorthok warrior reached him with claws aimed at his heart. Marcus sidestepped like his father had taught him during their engineering survey's precise movement. Born of measuring tolerances in dangerous industrial equipment, the alien's claws whistled past his chest as he drove his blade into the creature's knee joint. The warrior stumbled, and Marcus capitalized on the opening by slashing at its throat. His improvised weapon opened alien flesh from ear to ear, dropping the creature in a puddle of purple ichor. The second warrior learned from its packmate's mistake. Instead of rushing, it circled Marcus with patient malice, looking for an opening that wouldn't expose it to the boy's surprisingly effective blade work. Kira finally freed herself from the hunt leader's corpse, her tactical knife slick with alien blood. She rose like an avenging angel, her armor cracked and her face streaked with burns from the plasma explosion. 8 Vorthok warriors remained, wounded but still capable of killing, against 2 humans armed with knives and the kind of desperate courage that defined their species. The odds were almost even now, Marcus, she said, moving to stand beside the boy. Remember what I told you about fighting apex predators. Make them pay for every step forward, he replied, his voice steady. Despite their circumstances. That's right, and we've made them pay in blood. She gestured at the alien corpses scattered throughout the reactor chamber. 10 of their warriors dead, the rest wounded. They came here expecting to hunt prey. The surviving Vorthok warriors began to spread out, their movements revealing the discipline that had made them apex predators on a dozen worlds. But there was something different in their harmonic communications now, something that might have been uncertainty. They'd never faced prey that fought back this effectively. Instead, Kira continued, raising her knife toward the aliens. They found Marines. The final battle was about to begin. The reactor chamber fell silent except for the steady hum of contained antimatter and the labored breathing of exhausted combatants. 8 Vorthok warriors faced 2 humans across a floor slick with purple ichor and cooling alien corpses. The mathematics of the situation were brutally simple. Kira and Marcus were outnumbered 4-1 by apex predators that had evolved specifically to kill. But mathematics had never been humanity's strong suit. You know what the problem is with being apex predators? Kira asked conversationally, shifting her grip on her blood-slicked knife. You forget that sometimes prey evolves too. The lead Vorthok warrior, its bioarmor-bearing scars from Marcus's improvised explosives, cocked its head with something that might have been curiosity. These aliens were intelligent, capable of recognizing patterns and adapting to new threats. They'd just never encountered a threat quite like humanity before. You hunt for sport, Kira continued, beginning to circle the alien formation. You've turned killing into an art form, a celebration of your superiority over lesser species. It's beautiful in its own sick way. The aliens shifted nervously, their compound eyes tracking her movement while keeping Marcus in their peripheral vision. The boy had positioned himself near the reactor controls, his improvised blade ready, and his young face set in lines that belonged on a veteran warrior. "But you made one critical error," Kira said, her voice carrying the cold authority of someone who'd stared death in the face. "And found it wanting. You assumed we were prey." She moved, not toward the aliens, but away from them, a tactical withdrawal that drew the warriors into pursuit. They followed with predatory instincts honed by millennia of evolution, spreading out to prevent her escape while maintaining formation discipline. Exactly what she'd counted on. Marcus triggered the reactor chamber's emergency ventilation system. Superheated steam erupted from dozens of vents throughout the facility, filling the air with scalding vapor that turned visibility to zero. The Vorthic warriors' compound eyes evolved for tracking prey. Across open terrain struggled to penetrate the thermal chaos, but Kira had trained for this. 3 tours in the outer rim had taught her to fight blind, to use sound and instinct when technology failed. She moved through the steam like a ghost, her knife finding alien flesh with surgical precision. The first warrior died with her blade in its throat, the creature's death scream muffled by the roar of escaping steam. The second managed a plasma bolt that seared past her shoulder. Before she opened its chest from sternum to spine, it had become 6. Marcus wasn't idle. The boy had rigged the reactor's coolant system to create pockets of superheated air that could cook an alien alive. 2 warriors stumbled into his improvised death traps, their bioarmor cracking under thermal stress that exceeded their adaptive limits. 6 had become 4. The remaining Vorthic finally adapted, clustering together and using their harmonic communication to coordinate through the steam. They moved with deadly purpose toward the reactor controls, understanding that eliminating the boy would end his technological advantages. Kira intercepted them like a force of nature. She came out of the steam with her knife leading, driving the blade through the first alien's eye cluster before it could react. The creature's claws raked across her chest as it died, opening her armor and the flesh beneath to the bone. The second warrior's plasma bolt caught her in the shoulder, spinning her round and filling her nostrils with the stench of her own burning flesh. She rolled with the impact, using momentum to carry her blade into the alien's weapon arm, for had become 2. The final warriors abandoned pack tactics in favor of individual survival. One bounded toward the blast doors, seeking escape from the nightmare the reactor chamber had become. The other turned toward Marcus with killing intent, recognizing that the small human was the source of too many unpleasant surprises. Kira's throwing knife took the fleeing alien between the shoulder blades, punching through bioarmor weakened by repeated plasma explosions. The creature pitched forward onto the polished floor, purple ichor pooling beneath its motionless form. 2 had become 1. The last Vorthic warrior reached Marcus just as the boy triggered his final surprise it directed. Plasma discharged from the reactor's maintenance systems. The beam caught the alien center mass, burning through bioarmor like tissue paper and reducing the creature to component atoms. 1 had become 0. The reactor chamber fell silent except for the steady hum of contained antimatter and the labored breathing of 2 humans who just accomplished the impossible. Kira slumped against a coolant manifold, her shoulder wound streaming blood down her damaged armor. "Is it over?" Marcus asked, his voice small in the sudden quiet. Kira activated her long-range communicator, broadcasting on all Terran frequencies. "Command, this is Corporal Kira Volkov, 3rd Terran Marines. Hadrian Colony is secure. Hostile force eliminated." The response came immediately, laden with disbelief. "Confirm, Recon 7. Did you say hostile force eliminated?" "Confirmed, Command." 23 Vorthic warriors terminated with extreme prejudice. She looked at Marcus, seeing the boy who'd helped her turn a massacre into a victory. Correction, 23 Vorthic warriors terminated by Terran Colonial Defense Forces. Recon 7, we show your unit strength as 1 Marine. Kira smiled grimly, wrapping her arm around Marcus's shoulders. "Negative, Command. Unit strength is 2 Marines. Request immediate medical evacuation and full combat decorations for Private Marcus Chanokafer. Terran Colonial Defense." The boy straightened at the words, his young face lighting up with something that might have been hope. "Roger that, Recon 7. Medical evacuation inbound. ETA 30 minutes. Kira keyed her calm to record a final message, one that would be broadcast throughout human space and carry her words to every colony world. every military installation, every place where humans gathered under alien stars. This is Corporal Kira Volkov, speaking from the Hadrian Colony Fusion Plant. 24 hours ago, a Vorthik hunting party arrived at this settlement to conduct what they call Kadavara ritual hunt, where they torture innocent civilians for sport. They killed 400 men, women, and children. They came expecting easy prey. She gestured at the alien corpses scattered throughout the reactor chamber, their purple blood cooling on polished metal. Instead, they found humanity. We don't hunt for sport, we fight for survival, for family, for the right to exist in a universe that seems determined to exterminate us. We don't have bioarmor or plasma weapons or the evolutionary advantages of apex predators. Marcus stepped beside her, his improvised blade still slick with alien blood. But we have something the Vorthik will never understand. We have each other. When they hunt one of us, they hunt all of us. When they threaten our children, they threaten our future. And when they mistake us for prey. Kira raised her tactical knife toward the reactor chamber's ceiling, where human rescue ships were beginning their descent through Hadrian's atmosphere. They learned that humanity doesn't have apex predators. Humanity is the apex predator. The transmission ended, but its words would echo across the galaxy for generations. The Vorthik Kadavar hunts stopped immediately after news of Hadrian Colony reached their home world. An entire species of apex predators had learned that some prey fought back. And when humanity fought back, the hunters became the hunted. 3 months later, Kira stood on the observation deck of the TNS Retribution, watching Vorthik bioships burn in the vacuum round their former hunting grounds. Marcus stood beside her, now wearing the uniform of a Terran colonial marine and bearing the scars of someone who'd earned the right to call himself a warrior. They're requesting terms for surrender, he reported, studying the tactical display. Full cessation of hunting activities, reparations for the colony worlds, and formal recognition of human territorial sovereignty. Kira nodded, remembering 400 innocent civilians who'd died screaming while aliens turned their deaths into art. Tell them we'll consider their terms after we finish hunting them. The boy, now a marine, smiled grimly and relayed the message to the Vorthik fleet. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, apex predators learned to fear the sound of human voices singing their own hunting songs. The prey had evolved, and the galaxy would never be the same.